Check 1 2. Check 1 2.
How's that sound?
You sound amazing. You really do.
Cool.
And there's just like the faintest little ripple of the river.
Nice.
Yeah.
To go right to the heart of it, to go all the way to the heart of it, is that there are, and not in some cheesy or like fucking weird spiritual way, but just basic sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, guys love each other. They love their friends.
Yeah.
And it's okay to, and not just our friends, but our kids and our wives and, people. It's okay. I mean, that's becoming the message that I want to share more and more. Like, guys, hey, it's fucking okay to love. You fucking have to.
Mm-hmm.
You're happier when you do it. Like, your buddies, like, you love them, obviously. Like, just shut the fucking up and love them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And make sure that you set your life up so you have people you love around you.
Yeah.
And that you can give and receive love freely,
Yeah.
right? That's like that's the big thing that's actually happening here. It's not just the right, and it doesn't have to be talked about. It doesn't have to be sappy, right? But like that running buddy, when you just get happier when he's around, dude. That's the fundamental human shit there. That's tribal. That's
right.
mammalian. That's like, oh, I'm safer. I'm lit up. I'm creative. Like, it's just this thing, and like we put all of this time into like nutritional and like workout shit to like be the best version of ourselves, and that's all very good, and that should not stop. But like, if we don't also attend to our basic human social and emotional needs, like, none of it's going to get us there. So at Evryman, the basic work is setting up basically a sort of a bubble in which we say, hey, here, just be yourself. Actually, we're going to give you some sort of opportunities to be yourself even more. We're going to like notice when you're putting on a mask or sort of throwing some bullshit or putting on this front. Like, we're just going to say, hey, we'll notice that, and that's okay. But like, be yourself.
And you call them out?
Yeah, I mean, we have like processes. We have like be like this. We'd be like sitting here. We'd do an exercise, and the exercise would be, tell me everything that you're most afraid of. Really, right?
Yeah.
It would be that, and then you actually do that, and then you start to do that, and you recognize that it's okay to do that, and that you're not going to die if you share your vulnerability and what you're afraid of, and the other person across from you automatically feels closer to you. It's like this immediate drop into like a deeper sense of brotherhood or human connection, and then all of a sudden it's just a different way of interacting with people. All of a sudden you have friends that are like these people you just met become deeper than friends, faster than overnight, right? It's just like, I could actually just tell you what the fuck I feel and what actually is true. So it's more than just feelings. I mean, feelings is a way in. That's one of the things we're repressing. It's kind of one of the main things we repress. But beyond that, it's just this whole me or you. It's just like this whole existence that we put a cap on because we have needed to before. So we go in the woods. You go in someplace like Yellowstone National Park or Glacier or whatever, and with that set of circumstances, with that set of agreements between a group of men, all of a sudden you go out in the woods and it's like a crazy fucking adventure, not only in terms of connecting to nature and climbing mountains and like pushing yourself physically, but then also you're like learning how to be you in a new way because you're learning how to interact with other people in a new way. It's remarkable. So yeah, does that answer your question?
That sounds remarkable.
Yeah.
What is it about nature that makes this that is integral to this?
Well, I mean, a couple things, I guess. So the personal answer is that as a kid, it's where I felt the most alive. As a 37-year-old man, it's where I feel the most alive. Mm-hmm. There's a sense of, simplicity and just life. Actually, life, I think, would be the word that makes the most sense. I mean, like, there's no pretense, right? There's no like there's nothing out here that allows or forces you to be smaller than you actually are. It's kind of edgy and scary, I mean, honestly, it's actually kind of fun. So this is just a creek in my backyard, but there's like lots of rattlesnakes down here, and there are scorpions and black widows and all that stuff. So like there's a little bit of danger, which feels good. There's a little edge of danger. And it's just like, it's like our home, right? I mean, primally, it's our primal home, you know, like a Costco is not our primal home. Walmart's not our primal home. This is the woods, man. So there is a natural thing that happens when we spend, and for me, it's particularly the more time, the better in a sense. But when you live according to natural rhythms for a while, you just start to relax. And it might not feel like relaxing, but on a deep level, it's sort of like, I think, re-regulating your system with a more natural way of being.
What's that distinction? You said it doesn't feel like you're relaxing.
Well, I think to some people it feels scary and nerve-wracking and kind of intense to be out in the woods. But so yeah, on the surface, I don't think it always feels like, climbing a mountain or rucking a pack up a ridge or whatever. It might not, the momentary feeling might not be like, oh, this is really relaxing. But I feel like it's more of a deep, like, down sort of sense of groundedness or connection that allows like this deeper part of you to kind of let go. This, like, we're fucking animals. Like, we actually are. We can't get past that. Like, and I think that when we're out there, that part of us gets to come out. Yeah. It
reminds me of something you said in the last episode of your podcast. You were talking about how you have a friend who's a physical therapist, and he said that something along the lines of, when people are in pain, chronic pain, they never quite come down.
Exactly.
And you said that maybe other things, latent anxiety, like kids who can't read and things like that, and perhaps the hyped up sense of modern society and traffic every day, we never quite come down in the way that we could, getting away from that and getting into nature.
Dude, I mean, it's all about the nervous system is really what it's about. It's about the state of our nervous system. And so there's a couple main sort of modes, right? You have the parasympathetic response and your sympathetic response. And you probably know a lot about this, knowing your background, right? But then there's this sort of resting state, which is a band of the parasympathetic, which is where recuperation happens. It's where healing happens. It's where creativity tends to come from. It's basically, in my layman's terms, I'd say I'm okay. Like, I'm actually okay, right? There's like, I'm not feeling the pressure of any. You're right. It could be like, I don't know how to read, so school feels shitty, right? It could be, I'm stuck in traffic and I feel really not free, and like that feels shitty. And I mean, it could be or chronic pain, right? It's just these little things. And so I think that it's interesting because pain or struggle can be deeply helpful, but what you're naming is these sort of low level or medium level or even high level constant things that keep us in more of a fight or flight place. The not reading, the being in traffic, the constant chronic pain. It just kind of keeps you at this like level of just like kind of shitty all the time. And so there's I think that, and I like where you're going with this, but getting out in nature and kind of letting go and just sort of being without the mental like shit going on. I mean, it's a trip, man. I mean, it's like it's a big deal if you can be aware of what your body and mind are going through as you're out there. It's kind of like it's a really big deal. Yeah.
And you mentioned naming it. You mentioned being aware. What is it about sort of putting language or expressing these things that we feel that helps people to deal with them?
That's a great question. So it's, for the first answer is it takes what's subconscious and just underneath the surface and brings it to the conscious mind, which allows the conscious mind to sort of come into congruence with the subconscious. It's like, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel this way? Why do I feel this way? I don't feel good. I don't feel good. And then you name it and you're like, oh, that's just that. And then you can start to take some more clear action about it, right? So that's the kind of first step, like self-ownership of what's actually happening, right? So that's getting in touch with what's actually true for you. So that's like kind of the first step of what we do is learn how to check in with ourselves, right? So it may be, there's this nagging feeling. What is it? Like, and usually we just kind of notice it, but we do other stuff to distract or whatever. But if we slow down enough, we're like, you know what? There's this like gross feeling in the pit of my belly. And so I'm going to slow down and I'm actually like be with that. I'm going to be okay with, I'm going to know I'm okay. When we go into that, what the fuck is that? And so then we maybe check in with emotions. It's like, God, you know what that seems connected to is I have like a report I have to give at work on Friday and I don't feel like I put in the work. And I connect that physical discomfort with that, with an emotion, which is probably just fear or anxiety. And then it kind of all comes in. And then maybe I can take action, right? I can go do the work I need to do.
Yeah.
Let's cover that. Let's do it.
Yeah.
The other part, which is just as important and sometimes more important, is that so we can do it for ourselves, but the way that we're wired neurologically is as pack social mammals, animals, right? We need each other just to survive more than we allow for usually. So when I share what I feel and I verbalize it and you take that in and you witness that and you affirm that or you support that or whatever that is, that's like the next level. Because what that allows me to do is be like, I'm not fucking crazy. Like, this is okay. Somebody else sees this. Another person in my pack understands me, has my back, and that allows for a relaxation or and it comes down to the nervous system and a sense of safety. It's like, oh, okay, this is true. I feel this, and that's okay to feel this. And now I have somebody, that will probably support me in whatever I need to do.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So how did you form this understanding? Because I think that a lot of people could make sense of this, but not a lot of people would put it all together and put it into practice the way that you have.
Yeah, I mean that there's a lot of parts to that. I think the first main thing is that I was born a pretty sensitive dude, and I could just feel a lot of things. So whatever that is, or I was shaped as a young person to feel a lot. I don't know what the reality is there.
Just curious, what does feel a lot mean? Like, do you have like a Spider-Man sense of everybody around you that you can just kind of pick up on things?
Yep, I tend to be able to feel where other people are and what they feel pretty naturally, right? And so part of that, interestingly enough, is that in my sort of hometown, home culture, and familial setting. Nobody really ever spoke the truth about what was going on inside of them. And so there was just this like big gap between what people said and what people felt, like maybe my mom could come in the room and I could feel like very clearly that she was upset, but she said, "Oh, I'm okay," And so I don't know, maybe that's what sort of turned me more hyper aware of other people and those things. I don't know. I'm sure that there's something there that's valid. I think where it really became apparent for me was I spent a lot of time in the wilderness therapy setting as a guide in my early 20s. So a couple things. First of all, I started to learn about human connection and communication through that work and through the work we did with these kids. But then even I think the biggest part for me was literally it's the nature part, right? So when going into nature I probably spent 10, 15,000 hours out in the wilderness, like many days and nights and 24 hours a day away from roads, away from everything. And I think that sort of like slowed down state. I kind of think that naturally when we're there, we start to naturally, and it's not just me, people start to connect to each other more easily, more fluidly, right? Without as many barriers. And so I think that's really where it started for me is I kind of, and again, I say this with a grain of salt, and I don't know that I totally believe it all the way, but it does feel to me that I got to spend a good chunk of my early and mid-20s in something of a meditative state, in like a moving meditative state of just being, I think that there's being in nature that fully for that long, it changes you, and so that I also think that I just kind of am wired with something of a caretaker setup, so being out there with these kids, I had to be keyed into what they needed, where they were, what they were going through, both emotionally and physically, and survival. Not like we were surviving, but we were on massively long wilderness backpacking trips, and you have to really be keyed into people.
What's massively long?
Well, some of the kids on the programs would be out in the desert or the woods for like 120 days.
Well,
yeah. The general cadence of working, I would be out there some of the jobs were 8 days at a time. Most of the time it was 21 days at a time. The longest I did was in the high 40s days at a time. And, you know, all kinds of things in between there. So, you know, multiple weeks at a time. These kids would be on like a never-ending backpacking trip for like 4 months sometimes.
And what's bringing them out there in the first place? Family issues?
Struggle, you know, sometimes trouble with the law, sometimes addiction, you know, drug use, sometimes violence, sometimes playing too many video games. Just basically shit not working. Yeah, all kinds of different, to the point where, you know, that's an intervention, right? It's a real intervention to support a kid and a family in a big way. A lot of the work I did though was in correctional facilities, so it was with kids who were already in the judicial system.
So the kids are in the judicial system, and then you take them out backpacking, or you're there counseling in sort of a juvenile.
No, we take
center?
them out in the woods. One of the programs was some of the best work I've. Like the most heartfelt work I ever did was a program in Minnesota that was a 21-day wilderness program that was like, instead of a juvie sentence, they'd send them to us and we'd take them out on an adventure.
So you were the last resort. People coming to you and they're really looking for help.
Both. Okay.
I've
played both. I mean, I think, you know, sometimes that wilderness one was like, oh, this kid stole a car, but he's got a chance to kind of get his shit together before we incarcerate him, you know, which statistically is a bad path to go down. You know,
right.
Once you're incarcerated once, that tends to often continue. And so this is, I mean, that program was amazing. You know, I think some people might hear that and think that it was a boot camp or we were like hard asses, but it was totally the opposite. Like, we really treated the kids with a really human level of respect and taught them skills, and that was really beautiful work.
Yeah. Were you ever nervous?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, man. I had, you know, kids come after me. Kids threaten to hurt themselves. Kids threaten to hurt others. I mean, it was at times life or death.
Really?
Yeah.
Like what?
I had a kid once go into anaphylactic shock and had to, you know, he was dying in my arms. I had another kid hurt himself real bad. I won't tell the details about that. Yeah, a couple different moments of threat of harm, which were real scary. But yeah, there was a couple emergent situations that were very real.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. But you said it's still a very human experience, like you're hanging out around the campfire and stuff. One thing I've heard you talk about is reading this book that I just read, Siddhartha. How did that play into what you were trying to share with them?
I mean, it's cool. Yeah, it's cool to see a copy of it there. I read that book aloud to probably like 30 different groups of boys.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just was, I guess probably some of them got into it and some of them, they're just like, come on, dude, what are you doing here? But, it's a story of a man's life kind of told in, transitional stages, right? Boyhood to you know, sort of being a preteen or a teenager into like young manhood, love. It's just to me this very poignant arc of a human life, and it's, you know, the book's about a spiritually oriented character who's out trying to sort of understand what the fuck this life thing is, and goes into the woods to meditate for a long time, and then goes into the city and, you know, learns about love with this beautiful hooker basically, and which is awesome, and then, you know, learns business and learns how to make a lot of money, right. and I mean, it's just this beautiful arc of a human life that spoke to me, still speaks to me, and spoke to a lot of the kids that I worked with too, just because I think maybe I'm just feeling this now. Maybe at the base level, we're not often given very clear or good examples of like what life might look like. You know, we look out at our parents, we look out at the people we know, we look at celebrities, and we don't have a whole lot of really like nourishing maps for like what life looks like, right, or where we should go next, or what it all means. You know?
And don't men love maps?
Oh yeah, I got a map in the mail last night. It was a good one.
I thought that's cool.
Yeah.
What was it for?
The Sangre de Cristo Mountains in southern Colorado. I'm going on a backpacking trip next month.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we lack these maps in life, and then you see a connection in the story.
Yeah, I think that mapping out the life of a human or a man in this case is, there's no one map, there's no one thing, but I do think there's these stages of life that, we don't have that much distinction today in terms of stages of life, right? I mean, we do in a sense, like, you graduate high school, you either go to college or the military or whatever, you get out, and then, kind of like, what next? It's like, oh, well, build a career, probably figure out this relationship thing, like maybe have a family if that's what I want. And then, I don't know, keep going. And then maybe kids grow up. And then, I don't know, am I going to retire and then I die? Like that's the map. There's not much meaning there. There's not much fulfilling like human wisdom.
Right. It sounds like a checklist.
Yeah, it just sounds like I think that's what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think one thing that this book spoke to me about and that I think I care deeply about is that there's so much meaning and like amazing shit available. It makes me sad to think that people are going through life I don't know, I guess I could say missing out, but just I don't know. I think one thing I noticed with all the kids I worked with and now the thousands of men I worked with is like we are looking for meaning.
Yes.
We're really craving and needing that.
Yes.
And it's available, I guess, is my basic message. Yeah. Just like with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems that so much of your work, it seems, of course, deeply meaningful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the work of John Eldridge?
A little bit, yeah. I believe he's a Christian-oriented sort of male role model type guy, right?
Yeah.
He wrote the Fire book, or which one of the?
I don't know. I know he's written a lot of books, but he's got one in particular that I am familiar with that hits on some of the things that you're talking about. He talks about it being like a map for a masculine journey, and he talks about life in sort of more meaningful phases where you're sort of a young man, sort of a cowboy out exploring things, and eventually later in life, you don't just think of yourself as someone who's going to go to the retirement home and disappear, but instead to think of yourself as a sage who still has things to offer later in life. And it's a map that gives people a sense of meaning to each stage of life rather than a checklist.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
What have you seen, or can you keep in touch with guys after they do these things?
Oh yeah.
So how's that going?
I mean, it's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really beautiful. I have like a whole crop of young men, both from my wilderness time and both from the time when I was a teacher. I taught in the Bronx for a couple of years, and I mean, it's just beautiful. It's cool to see them grow. Some of them I'm close to still. Others have just stayed like social media in touch. I guess just selfishly or personally, I mean, it's very gratifying and rewarding to have relationships like that. Sort of intergenerational relationship has always been weirdly important to me. Like relationships with older men and then relationships with younger men. Again, I think it just it automatically begins to build meaning in what we're talking about, right? Is like, men who are older than me, and my wife always makes fun of me. We joke about it, but like we go to a party, like I will find the oldest dude in the room within 2 minutes, and I will probably sit there and talk to him for most of the party. Yeah, I don't know why that is, but yeah, I mean, it's just this like human like tribal normal shit I think that we don't often have the time to engage in, right? It's like there's a lot to learn from guys who have gone through life, right? And I don't know how old, I'm guessing you're around late 20s, early 30s, something like that. Is that yeah? There's a lot of meaning to be had by mentoring or supporting or sort of teaching younger people too. It's just like it's just a deeply human thing. Yeah. To do that.
How do you think in the modern world you can make those connections? Because I find so many places I've been in life, I've been really among people just my own age. Like
Yeah.
I think of college
Yeah.
in particular. I didn't see anybody
Yeah.
outside of that exact college range. If there was a baby on campus, it was very strange.
Totally.
And so, how do you make those connections now?
I mean, what you're speaking to, I think, is one of the main reasons we started Everyman, right?
Mhm.
I mean, like, I think we have to be more intentional about it.
Mhm.
I think places where it does still happen would be churches. It's a good question because today I think it is hard today. I don't know, YMCA's, like community gatherings, right? Like, I guess that would be the first question I ask is, like, where in my life are there larger community gatherings that aren't, this specialized thing that we're doing? There was a really cool paper put out by Columbia School of Divinity. I don't know, I think it was like maybe 5 or 6 years ago or 4 years ago.
Go Lions.
What's that?
I said go Lions. It's my alma mater.
Really?
Yeah.
Columbia?
Yeah.
You went to Columbia?
Yeah.
It's my favorite school in the world, man.
Yeah.
If I could go back, I'd go there.
Yeah, 'cause you were in the Bronx.
Yeah, I lived all over New York City
Yeah.
for a long time. But,
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Good for you. And anyway, this paper was called Why We Gather, or How We Gather. And it was a really cool sort of deep dive into the function that churches and community organizations have played through history, what that does for people, and then now in our secular society, how people are finding each other for these things in the modern day. So they studied things like CrossFit, they studied things like Soul Cycle, they studied things like, really, like the things that people get fired up about, because not only are they going to do something, they're going to do it amongst a community of people, right? And so Everyman is clearly purposefully serving that purpose, right? And at this point, it's it's a men's oriented organization. But you go to a retreat or you go to your men's group. Our best men's group have guys in their 60s and 70s, 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, right? Like there's, it's not always like that. We got groups of guys that are all 38, white, and work in a creative industry too, right? Like that happens,
Sure.
right? But we do encourage diversity of all types, right? And I think it opens up an interesting conversation about diversity in general and what that means. But I forget your original question. Something about community or
how
why?
to do it.
Yeah, how to find. Yeah, I mean it's a great question, man. I didn't hang out with little kids. Actually, it's interesting. So a couple places in my life, in my late 20s, I lived in Brooklyn. For about 8 months, I shared a house with a friend of mine and her whole family. So her husband and her 2 little kids.
Wow.
Her one little boy was actually born in the home while I was there.
Whoa.
And so that was like, what the fuck, like a toddler? Like I didn't have any experience with toddlers. So I kind of put myself in that position. And then I used to take more time specifically hang out with my grandparents, and I just don't have much time for that anymore. But it's a good question. I think it's hard. I think it's hard to find a multi-gen, unless you are lucky with a big family or some sort of built-in community approach, or you do go to some sort of faith organization or something where that happens. But
yeah, it can be tricky.
Yeah,
for sure. I find like in my neighborhood, I would love to get to know my neighbors, and I go out and I walk the road a lot. But I only see my neighbors driving. Yeah. So they're going by me at 40 miles an hour, and I give them a wave, but that's kind of all we get often.
Yeah.
You mentioned that this is one of the reasons that you started Everyman. What would be the other reasons?
I mean, the biggest reason is kind of intangible. I mean, we, and I'll say we because it was, I feel like I was in a men's group. Well, yeah, let me just give you the kind of like the fast, punchy story. I did that work in the wilderness and got obsessed with what these young dudes needed in order to be healthy and to grow up, and kind of continued to live my life. Moved to New York, moved to the Bronx, was a teacher for a while. Got to a pretty intensely shitty place in my life for a short period of time, and was invited to a men's group, which I didn't know existed. I didn't know what it was. I mean, it was like speaking German, and I don't know German, so it was actually a German guy that invited me. And, you know, he invited me to this thing, and I showed up and was blown the hell away by how impactful and helpful. Like, I would watch men, you know, come in this men's group and like completely shift their life to a place of, and myself included, to really getting clear on what we wanted, and then having the support and the courage to like go after it and get it. It just happened over and over and over and over. And, you know, guys get better at their relationships and have better relationships with their family, and really like find their dreams and achieve them. It's just like, well, geez, this is a big deal.
It sounds like a magic bullet.
It's like, well, yeah, I mean, I would say magic bullet, but like pretty fucking helpful, man.
Yeah.
You know, certainly more helpful than just a protein shake in the morning, you know? And so, yeah, I kind of got really curious about why it was so helpful, but even more so, why was it so hard to talk about? Because it still was. It was for me for a long time to like go to a party and like talk about a men's group. Like, people would be like, I think part of it was just like, don't know what it is. I think people were maybe rightfully so leery of a place where men got together and things were confidential and they weren't sharing what went on exactly. You know, I get it. I think I get it. I can, you know, I think it has echoes of, I mean, I think people have all kinds of sort of images in their mind. I think homophobia plays a part of it. It's like, wow, guys are going to get together and be intimate and honest with each other. So I think people are like, what is it, just a bunch of closeted gay dudes? I think there's echoes of old, like, secret society shit that people are like, well, who are you guys? What are you doing? Like, what's going on in there? The reality was going on there was guys were just, like, getting fucking honest and real with themselves. Like, really, that was the entirety of it. So I kind of set out to figure out how to package, share, talk about a men's group in a way that would be more acceptable or understandable to the wide world, right? That really became my mission. I moved out to Montana and Idaho for a while, and I met Owen Marcus, who's one of the co-founders along with me at Evryman, and here's just this like amazing dude living up in a house on the top of a mountain in Idaho who really developed this entire method of working with guys, this entire way to plug into your emotions, and really simple, very straightforward. And I mean, it was just very obvious. It's like, wow, well, this guy figured something out real good. And like, you know, for me, I think the clear mission was, well, let's take his work and help shape it and bring it to the world. Yeah. That's what we did. Yeah. You know? So I think the clear reasons are, I needed the core of what we do, you know, kind of somatic and emotional awareness. I needed it myself. I had to go learn it. It was wildly helpful, and I saw the benefit not just for me, but for basically every dude who ever got into it. And I don't know, it just kind of became it clarified as my biggest purpose for the last, you know, chunk of my life. Yeah. So.
Yeah. You mentioned the phrase somatic awareness. I don't know if many people are familiar with that.
Yeah, physiological body. So noticing what's happening in your body. Like what I said earlier, I mentioned that thing about feeling that thing in the pit of your stomach, or noticing when your throat starts to close down, noticing if your jaw's clenching, really just noticing, having a more finely tuned awareness of what's happening in your body.
Yeah. I was reflecting on this, and I was realizing, for me, I think I get triggers sort of in my forehead. If I have, like, when I used to have like tension at work or things like that, and like sort of ambiguous situations with a boss or something, I get tension in my forehead or like a throbbing over an eyebrow. But I at that time hadn't put that in place. It only took sort of reflection after to come back to it. For sure.
It's a hugely impactful thing to really get into that, and it's mindfulness is what it is.
Yes.
It's an avenue of mindfulness that allows you to be much more on your toes with what's happening within, much more sort of aware moment by moment what's going on within you, you know, and it just helps you, again, create that congruence between your, you know, I mean, I can imagine, you know, whatever that situation with the boss, and, you know, you got that crunched forehead, and just like maybe your mind is just spinning or looping like, if I could, I mean, I don't know what the conversation is, right?
Definitely.
but if you can be like, whoa, dude, hold on, and like, my forehead's really clenched. Okay, first of all, let's see if I can relax that a little bit. and what does that mean, right? I mean, you can go through this quick thing, like, so that means that I'm very stressed, and then you can also learn the tools to sort of pierce that moment. Like, I think, again, this is an imaginary situation, be like noticing, be like, maybe you could, and maybe a military is like, or a boss is not the place to do this, but say it's with I'm just going to give an example with my wife. If that same thing is happening, I'm really stressed, I feel my forehead crunch, I could just be like, whoa, babe, hold on. I'm realizing that, like, I'm doing that my head is like doing that thing, and usually that means that I'm like really like pissed off or frustrated. So I just need to pause. I want to tell you that, like, I'm feeling like pretty shitty in this moment. I'm still connected to you. Can we back up and talk this out a little bit? Something like that.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. And I think that this body connection too is something that it's great that it works and it's science, and also great for men, I think, because men, if it was just talking, I think it might be harder to kind of sell men on it.
Yeah.
But to hear that, like, no, now I'm going to have this deeper sense of my body and this physical awareness, it almost sounds like a ninja skill. It sounds more masculine.
It actually is a ninja skill.
Oh, okay.
Well, it really is. I mean, when it comes down to it, the awareness of yourself, and I say ninja skill with like a tongue in cheek in a big sense, but it really is, man. It's like, it's literally just being keyed in to a deeper sense of truth for your own self in the moment, and using that to sort of connect. Because the other thing too is that, first of all, guys suck at emotions, generally speaking, right? Pretty clunky, pretty stiff, pretty not fluid in that space. The reality is every human has emotions, like, all the fucking time. Like, we can keep them at bay. We can go stoic. We can go down. But when we're doing that, we're also disassociating from what's actually happening. We're disassociating from physiological things that are happening in us. We're disassociating from other things. And there are times we need to do that, and there are times that's the best move you could do, right? When you're pushing a set of squats or whatever, like, disassociating and just going beast on it is totally applicable.
Yeah.
But for a lot of human interaction, and I would say this is relationships, it's also work relation. It's like everything that is relational. When we disassociate from that, it puts other people around us at dis-ease. It puts people in uneasy states because they don't know what the fuck's going on. They can't tell if we're safe or not. And this is primal shit. This is like mammalian stuff. It's like, they sniffing each other's butts. Like, are you safe? Are you gonna fucking hurt me? Are you gonna like leave me? Or like, what is this, right? Yeah. So when we're disassociated in relation to other people, it just sets this whole like edge.
Right.
And it might be really subtle. And most of our relationships are already in that zone, I mean, a lot of guys come in and talk about their relationship with their dads and when they were kids. I mean, everybody has a different story with their dad, but a lot of the repeated ones are, first of all, he was just absent, either actually or emotionally. Like, he wasn't present with us. Another story with dad is that, well, what he did show us was like anger and aggression, right? I mean, it could be, and there are dads out there that were present and all of that good stuff, but it really does come to a head. So I have 2 young boys now, and to what we're talking about in this sort of ninja skill of being aware of your body and your emotion is like watching it in real time with my young boys. I mean, they are fucking aware of all of these things. They're aware of our state. They're aware if we're like really tense and angry inside. They're, and then
oh yeah, when you come in the house and dad's mad,
right?
Yeah.
Right. But here's the thing. So like, when we can learn to be okay with that ourselves and manage that ourselves, we make it safer for them. Because what happens in that little boy's mind could be on many things, but some imaginings that come to mind is like, oh, he's mad at me, right? Or maybe he's mad at mom, or maybe he's not okay and I need to take care. I mean, it could be a million things, but if you don't explicitly share it, if you just stay disassociated, they are left to make up the meaning behind the whole thing, which literally sets us up for lifetimes of our fucking patterns. As human, right? I mean, many of us still have some of these childhood wounds or whatever, some of these patterns that were set in place that are just like, I do this because, my dad came home, and now when somebody acts that certain way, it's in my fucking bones and it's hard to not act out. Just, So I think fatherhood turns into a really kind of puts this shit to the test almost more than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
And do you think that your work, your organization, could have an influence on those sort of reactions that people have in a broader sense in culture?
It already is.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How so?
Yeah. Well, I mean, guys who get into this are, I mean, and this is all, both anecdotal, but also sort of measured through surveys and all this stuff, some of the data collection we're doing. But with no hesitation whatever, I'm confident to say that the fathers who have taken this kind of shit seriously
Mm-hmm.
are changing the trajectory of their families
Mm-hmm.
unequivocally.
Yeah.
Unequivocally changing the trajectory of their children's lives.
Yeah.
and their marriages, and like it's not a silver bullet. It's a lot of work. It's confusing at times. It's scary.
Mm-hmm.
It's really scary, but really, like, and I mean, I'm a prime example. Like, my dad came to a retreat about a year ago, and him doing that and us having that really raw time moments together changed my life.
Yeah.
And that in turn is changing my kid's life, and it's like it's some pretty big shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did the birth of your son inspire you?
I mean, in a million ways, but I think that my stock answer to that is that I was still at that time really terrified to talk about. I mean, this conversation we're having right now, it was all inside of me, but I was still really scared to have it.
Even after you'd done the work with boys in the woods and things like that?
Yeah. Yeah, I was. I felt for many years, literally. So I started writing right before my son was born. I started writing some articles, just some web articles for my buddy's website, and I remember writing the first one, and like really had a series of moments of being like scared shitless, talking to my wife, being like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this, I'm scared to do this, and kind of like that, just close your eyes and hit the send button, I mean, I feel it was clear to me this is what I should be doing with my time, and there was a clear reckoning when Duke, that's my oldest son's name, when he was born or about to be born, right about that time, there was a clear reckoning. It was like it felt like it would be it would, by withholding it, would literally be harming not just him, but more specifically, I guess like an analogy would be, you go to Walmart and get a little plant, and then you want to like till the soil and put that plant somewhere, or right by the right window, give it the right light, give it the right water, the right whatever, like, the right environment to grow up in.
Mm-hmm.
And I just that was kind of what it felt like, is that I needed not only just to be there for him, but I needed to do my part to, I don't know, cultivate a better world around him.
Yeah.
Like create a better garden for him to get planted in.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds a little cheesy when I say it, but it was a very real kind of awakening for me. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't sound cheesy at all. It sounds I mean, it's a metaphor, and it really tells the story.
Mm-hmm.
Dan, you said in I think it was in your TED Talk that now sort of the men who we thought of as protectors, a lot of that role has changed, and now we see more issues with men as predators and things. How do you see your work influencing that?
Yeah. Well, I feel like there's two levels of predator that, and that's an intense word, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, the first is actual predatory behavior, which is sexual predation, inflicting violence and harm on others. That's one level of that, which is obviously a massive deal, and culturally right now a really big deal, as it always has been, but it's come to light recently. And then the second level that I would say of harm that men do is more through ignorance and not knowing, or it's this it's dad being so stressed out and not able to manage it that he comes home and he's not present for his kids.
Yeah.
It's dad that doesn't is unable to love his partner or his wife as fully or easefully as he probably wants to, right? So it's that harm that's inflicted by really withholding one's love, not on purpose probably, but in the big, that's just kind of what happens. So I feel like the work we're doing with Everyman kind of collectively, I mean, first of all, what we're really doing is just helping guys get more healthy. Yeah. That's really it on the bottom line, right? And I feel like if we can raise the mental, emotional, sort of connective health of men in general, like those issues, those predation issues, both levels of those, will be served and serviced by our work, right? I mean, I think like a man, I mean, one of the pieces of work that I'm becoming more and more involved with, which I'm really passionate about right now, is gender dynamics in the workplace, in corporations and teams and things like this. And, there's this whole concept of allyship, and how can men support women in the workplace? How can we create a balanced and equitable workplace? And what I feel is generally the missing link there is this. I think the thing that has to happen first there is this baseline of emotional awareness on men's part. I feel like most men are not in a flexible and fluid enough emotional place to have the depth of conversations and ownership that's needed. For a guy to own that at work, that he's scared of potentially his sexual urges and he feels intimidated by women's power or whatever it is. I mean, you could come up with many things, but like guys aren't really prepped to go there right now.
I can't imagine that conversation in the workplace.
But that's what has to happen.
Yeah.
That's what has to happen. We got to get real about that. And, it might not be like pulling back the sheets on every scary thing in the workplace, but it comes down to trust and safety, we could keep pretending at getting along. We could keep like half-assing it, or we can, come to the idea that we can be a human in the workplace too, and we just got to set it up so that that's okay. So I started doing these workshops with a brilliant woman named Cherie Healy, and we're calling it Reunion, and it's really it's a 2.5-hour workshop where you come in on one end and literally have the building blocks of how to have those intense conversations, and sort of the apex moment in there is we are pairing men and women up to talk about sexual violation, to talk about equality in pay in the workplace, and to talk about intimacy and sex. And like, it's fucking wildly beautiful. Yeah. It's I mean, the feedback we've been getting is that people are like feeling hopeful for the world for the first time. Wow. Like really, really, really cool stuff. I keep getting texts. I just got to make sure it's not my wife.
Sure.
Yeah, we're good.
That's great.
Yeah.
And that's, you said you've been doing this work with bigger organizations and stuff. I think you're up in the Bay Area and things.
Starting to.
Yeah.
Yeah, really starting to sort of do some groundwork for some pretty some of our world's largest and most known companies that really are ready to tackle this all the way.
That's great.
Yeah.
Wow. A couple other things. I like this one. You said that to get into sharing your feelings and things like that, you said that vulnerability times time equals the depth of connection. How does that equation all take shape?
Yeah, so the first story that comes to mind is when I was in 9th grade, we moved to a new town, and I went to a new middle school, not knowing anybody, kind of scared shitless, and there was 2 dudes at the school who lived in my neighborhood, Hagen and Justin, and we started, just because we started walking home together from school every day. It was probably a half an hour, 40-minute walk. And we also went to the same church, and so we just kind of knew each other. I think our moms might have done some setup too. I don't remember, but We just started having that walk every single day, spend that time, and became my best friends, like just naturally and easily. And Hagen's still has been a lifelong close friend, and that's the time, right? So like I don't know that I would have ever become friends with those specific guys if we didn't have that repetitive time together, right? Like, you just kind of naturally start to, I don't know, get to know people, and it takes time to build a friendship, right? I think what's really happening there is over time you're getting these little openings of showing more of your true self, right? Of like maybe sharing a little bit of your passion, a little bit of whatever, and it's kind of this like goofy, awkward sort of dating thing that friendships do. It's like, like how are we gonna really be friends? Like, how's this gonna work?
Right, right.
Are we gonna just kind of awkwardly go through this together? And then, so that's the time part, right? And I think that's pretty obvious that over time people build trust and respect and all that kind of stuff. The equation of vulnerability multiplied by time is that, for example, you can come to one of our weekends or even just a men's group for a couple hours, and in a condensed amount of time, if you push the gas on the vulnerability and you just share who the fuck you are, what the fuck you feel, what you want, what's actually true, what you really like, what's really going on for you, like that's the ninja skill that's not even a ninja skill because it's so simple, is that people naturally feel you.
Yeah.
They feel you.
Yeah.
They get it. And you know what happens when humans feel each other? They fucking come together. Like I don't care who it is. If I'm sitting like where you're sitting, if somebody shows up and just like opens up to me and shares their like reality and their depth, like I'm gonna fucking love you.
Yeah.
I'm going to want to do whatever I can to support you. Like I will probably go out of my way and make shit happen for you. Right? And that's just normal. That's not like some weird thing. That's what humans do.
Right.
That's the thing. That's the actual thing that's a constant. And I mean, maybe there's probably some people that doesn't work for. Most people, at least the ones who self-select and come do this shit we do, it's like there's no way around it. There's no way around it. Like you care about this person, right? And so the depth of connection is you can jump over that long. Like if you wanted to build a friendship, especially if you're like a dude, like in your 30s or 40s, men in their middle ages, white men in their middle ages, statistically have the fewest friendships and the highest acknowledgement of lack of fulfillment. So have the least fulfillment in their friendships and the fewest number of friends. Because we no longer have our sports team. We no longer have our college buddies. Everybody moved away. We're all isolated in our little silos of family. We maybe have some work buddies. We rarely have people really open up to. And we're fucking alone. And these dudes are the same dudes killing themselves.
Right.
Or medicating. Or fucking like whatever, man. It's like come on, wake up. Like this is a thing, This is a real thing. And so you can just think of an actual algebraic equation. So take time, but up that fucking quotient or up the factor of vulnerability high, dude. You can make the best friends in your life in 2 days. I fucking guarantee it because guys are doing it everywhere I go.
Right.
If male friendship and bonds were a currency, I'd be like I'd be a fucking trillionaire.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be just a billionaire. I'd be a fucking trillionaire.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And it changes how you look at the world. Because after every retreat we do, somebody always comes up and said, Dan, how did you get like this group of guys? Like these guys are the most remarkable people I've ever fucking seen anywhere. Yeah. How would you be able to get these guys here? And it makes me so happy because I get to say it doesn't fucking matter what group of people it is. It doesn't matter who specifically comes here. This is what happens.
Yeah.
This is what happens. We're all fucking awesome. But it's not some bullshit like you're fucking awesome, be awesome, just be you, It's not some like prescriptive like that doesn't fucking work. It's an actual experience. And it's an experience of actually seeing people as they are.
Yeah.
It's fucking amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like in my own life, like I feel so fortunate that as a kid, I didn't get into spending a lot of time alone with video games and stuff, and that I was obsessed with running, which probably had its own downsides, but I got to be around guys out on the trails every day, and we weren't that intense on the vulnerability quotient, but we were intense on the time.
Right.
2 hours a day,
right,
out together, sweating, and human connection, touching, high fives, things like that, that I feel so fortunate to have looking back. And when I catch up with those guys, one in particular, it's like we can just drop into it, that there's a depth there. And other people say, oh, you're happier when John's around.
Yeah.
There's something different that came from that. We can have this, and you can do it through time, or you can do it through vulnerability, but it seems without either, you never find it.
Dude, totally. And, I think to go right to the heart of it, to go all the way to the heart of it, is that there are, and not in some cheesy or like fucking weird spiritual way, but just basic sense. Like, guys love each other. They love their friends, and it's okay to, and not just our friends, but our kids and our wives and, people. It's okay. I mean, that's becoming the message that I want to share more and more. Like, guys, hey, it's fucking okay to love. You fucking have to. You're happier when you do it. Like, your buddies, like, you love them, obviously. Like, just shut the fucking up and love them, right? And make sure that you set your life up so you have people you love around you. Yeah. And that you can give and receive love freely, right? That's like that's the big thing that's actually happening here. It's not just right? And it doesn't have to be talked about. It doesn't have to be sappy, right? But like that running buddy, when you just get happier when he's around, dude, that's the fundamental human shit there. That's tribal. That's mammalian. That's like, oh, I'm safer, I'm lit up, I'm creative. Like, it's just this thing. And like, we put all of this time into like nutritional and like workout shit to like be the best version of ourselves, and that's all very good and that should not stop. But like, if we don't also attend to our basic human social and emotional needs, like, none of it's going to get us there.
Yeah. When you say it like that, I mean, I know people who wear rings that measure their sleep and things that measure how much they work out. They keep workout journals, they keep nutrition journals, diet plans. I don't know anybody who's got a human connection plan. It's like, okay, this is when I'm going to do this.
It's the lowest hanging fruit in terms of personal development and wellness. Yeah. And I think we're on the frontier of it, and I think it's going to become, as that becomes mainstream, we're going to see real, true shifts in our society.
Yeah. Yeah. A guy who I also interviewed once, his name's Dom D'Agostino. He's a big scientist, Dom?
Yeah.
And somebody asked him, what's the key to longevity? Like, what's the one thing that you would focus on? And they're expecting him to say, like, ketosis, or eat more fats, or cut your carbs, or something.
Relationships.
Relationships was his answer. He said, if you look at the blue zones, the places where people live long, healthy, happy lives, if you look at the science behind it, the studies on this, relationships would be the place to start.
What are guys shittiest at?
Right. So Dan, what would be the place to start in that? If somebody was listening to this and say, okay, I'll make one little incremental change.
Every day, or whenever you are able to, share just one more little truth of yourself with somebody else around you. Be just a hair more forthright with who you are with people, and test that out.
Yeah.
Practice. Lean into a little bit more of your own sense and share that. And that is simply an act of vulnerability. It's simply an act of allowing more of yourself to be seen by other people.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
And so that could be as simple as speaking up when you would normally not. It could be as simple as telling your partner, that you love them with more earnestness or fullness than you normally would. It could be dropping a note to your brother who you haven't seen in a long time and just saying, "Hey, I've been thinking about you and I miss you."
Mm-hmm.
Any little act of connection.
Yeah,
that's what I would say.
Cool.
Yeah.
What do you see for Evryman in the future, long term?
Yeah, I mean, well, what I would like to see, what I envision is really an embrace of mainstream culture into this exact thing we're talking about, which is relationships and human connection as a primary. See our attention as a culture hook onto that as is us taking care of ourselves and recognizing that that is purely, simply, inarguably important. And every man's place in that, I think, to start, it's it's starting to go global already, but I would love to see, these men's groups or men's circles, everyman groups, just a normal part of life. First in this country, in North America, but around the world. I feel like, at this point, there's no charge. They are free. It's just a set of tools and skills that we offer, and you do it on your own time. And it's a very decentralized operation in that part. And I would love to, help every man help continually destigmatize and redefine some of these simple human parts of ourselves. And to I have some big visions too. I would love for a sitting president to be sitting in a men's group, sitting in it. That's a big dream of mine. Wow. I feel like corporations, major sports leagues, these things, that's where some real cultural shifts can happen. So I would love to be a part of their understanding and their dialogue about what they do. And man, I mean, total inoculation around the globe. It's going to be
world domination.
But then beyond that too is having it support other conversations for women, between men and women. There's so many other applications of these. It's not just a men's thing, right? It just happens to be how we started, and I think there was a particular problem we set out to address, but it goes so far beyond just guys. I think it's just an entry point. Yeah. So.
Well, then, before I ask my last question, if people want to know more, they want to check out this sort of stuff, where should they look for you online?
Everyman.com, EVRYMAN.com. Yeah, you can find everything there. The podcast, the weekend retreats, the wilderness expeditions, the any of it and all of it.
Very cool. I think we'll just give whatever that is, a helicopter or something, a second. I think that's good.
Cool.
Yeah. So, Dan, my final question is, what can a leader do to create a culture where people are going to share more?
Lead by example, and be as sort of the word that comes to mind first is disarm with your own vulnerability, right? Like, you can create a culture of ease and human connection by simply being forthright about your own truth and about your statements and what you want, and finding a comfort in your own self with all of the parts of you that are uncomfortable enough that they change your behavior, if that makes sense. So if there's like parts of your job that are edgy, scary, whatever it is. I mean, whether it's a conflict conversation, whether it's a we're not doing so good, whether it's like, I would say, like, instead of projecting some sort of supposed status quo that is just assumed everybody wants from you, stoic, stern, got shit covered, whatever it is, appropriately learn to be okay with discomfort yourself first. Interpersonal discomfort, emotional discomfort, situational get to the place where you can be okay with the fucking truth regardless of what it is. And then you can stand in that truth, and other people will hear it openly and honestly, and they will see you. They will see who you are. They will see your heart and where you're intended. They will feel your leadership. They will feel where you are trying to get everybody without any bullshit oriented around it, without any sort of manipulation, and that could take a million different forms. So, learn to get real with yourself so that you can get real with people.
Beautiful. Dan, thanks so much.
Yeah, man. Thank you.